Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. And in studio with me today is a phenomenal woman. She is a speaker. She is an author. She is a woman of God. And she's really looking to put her imprint on the world, changing lives, empowering, encouraging, inspiring anybody that she can come in contact with. She has taken time out of her busy schedule to join us today, and I'm so thankful that she's done so. We've recently become acquainted with one another, and we're just on this journey together again to just try to change lives and impact people. And she's going to share with us a little bit about her journey along the way and getting to the place in life where she's operating in her calling. So without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Miss Surphia Lewis. Surf, as she goes by her nickname. Surf, thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Thank you, Joseph. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we begin, before I kind of dig into everything, if you would, tell a little bit about yourself. Give everybody a little bit of taste of who Surf is and what you're all about.
Well, I'm a native of Chicago. I've been, let's see, I stayed in Chicago until I want to say in my 30s or whatever. And then I left. I started seeing the drug era take over. And this is when crack was happening. And I said, well, there has to be more to life. And so I moved south to Georgia. I'm sorry, was here for 17 years. And of all places, got transferred back through work to Chicago uh, for about 5 years and spent 4 years in Florida. And now I'm back in Georgia. Georgia is where I feel home is. And one of the reasons I feel that way is because I think when I was in Chicago and in all the other places, I knew about God, right? And in Georgia is where I began to understand Him for myself.
Hmm.
So it's a complete different level of understanding and channeling and closeness and all of that. Um, so yeah, I'm an previous award winning salesperson, and I walked away from corporate America in February of this year, um, and fortunately, unfortunately, it was a choice of my sanity as opposed
Hmm.
to making the money, and I chose my sanity.
Hmm. Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, that's actually been a thing that I've been having a big conversation with a number of people lately, in particular, about transitioning from career to calling, choosing peace of mind over financial gain, and then
Mhm.
that's not to say that we don't still want to make money, and whether it's to pay our bills or whether it's to just do the fun stuff in life, but I think as you walk through life and you experience certain things, and in particular, when you have a relationship with God and you begin to open up and allow Him to speak to you, and He just reveals to you, what's important and
Yes.
what's all of a sudden not so important, like you may have thought it was 10, 20,
Mhm.
30 years ago when you were just out here just trying to, make the name for yourself and make all the money. So
Absolutely.
I totally respect whenever I have an opportunity to hear somebody talk about, you know what, I chose me, and I
Hmm.
chose to step away, not only for my peace of mind, but again, for me to finally find fulfillment in
Hmm.
what I was gifted and called to do. And so we're going to delve into that a little bit more as we, speak to you today on the show. But I just wanted to take that moment, even in the early stages of our conversation, to highlight that, because it's something that I even, ponder all the time, quite more so lately than ever, just because, when you have a prosperous career and you've had the accolades and the money and all of that, it feels good, and you're proud of those accomplishments. But it's just something about when that tug is inside of you to saying, you know what, there's more to it. There's more to
Yes.
life, and don't miss out on that opportunity for you to not only be blessed, but of course to be a blessing to somebody. And that's where we're tapping into our spiritual gifts, our calling that God has for us to do the great work that He set forth. And we just have to be receiving of that, and be fearless. And sometimes
Yes.
that's a little
That
hard to
part.
do, especially when you're used to the check coming in every two
Oh yeah.
weeks and certain amounts and the
Oh yeah.
guarantees of it and all that. And you're saying, okay, just just trust, just go on out there and just do my
Mm-hmm.
thing. Yeah, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds great. But,
Yeah,
and even as a believer, it's still challenging to do,
it absolutely is.
so again, I
Not
greatly
for the weak.
respect.
It's not for the
No,
faint.
it's absolutely, absolutely not. So again, I appreciate you sharing that, and in the very early going, just setting the stage of what this whole journey process is like, because it's all good to see the beauty and the vision of it all, but there are steps that come along the way. There's some bumps in the road
Absolutely.
that come along the way, and even to that, you know, just because you go through stuff doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Even though it may not feel good, it's still necessary to
Yes.
getting us where we need to get to. So with that said,
Mhm.
I do want to dig a little bit deeper
Okay.
with you. First off, just starting with, you mentioned, of course, you're born and raised in Chicago, as I
Hmm.
was myself. So we got a little Chicago connection going on this today.
Yeah.
But I am curious to know, if you would share with us, what was it like, just overall in your growing up in Chicago? When you think back to that time, fond memories of growing up, as well as if there was any specific challenges that you may have had to deal with in growing up. Kind of give us a little bit more broader perspective for people, of course, people in particular who may not even know what it's like to grow up in Chicago, and what that experience was like for you. So, if you would, please elaborate on that a little bit more for us.
Absolutely. Well, as you know, Chicago was a different place back then, and I don't know that it's so different today. It's just accentuated differently. I'll say that. I think as within any city, there's craziness going on and there's greatness going on. So in my case, I grew up in a neighborhood that was pretty tight knit. Well, I'll say a block because we had a block club.
Hmm.
We had, Miss Sweden and Miss Hiram and all of them, that rallied around us as children and made certain that we were doing what we were supposed to do. There were trips that were planned during the summer times for us to not be out in the street doing mischievous things. You had to be concerned about how you were behaving because somebody was going to see you. And
Hmm.
somebody was going to tell mama and big mama no. So, my childhood for the most part was pretty great. I grew up in a two-parented home, didn't even realize how fascinating and how honorable that was, and meaning that most of my friends didn't have that, didn't
Mm.
even recognize it until I was an adult looking back, right? And realized how blessed I had been to be in a two-parented home. Had our normal dysfunctions and had our normal, encounters or whatever. But for the most part, I can't say that I had a bad childhood. I think that there were some challenges that I had to navigate through. Um, because a lot of times what happens, unfortunately, to the obedient child, to the one that does all the right things and isn't the squeaky wheel, a lot of times they are not as attended to as
Mm.
the children that have a lot going on. or
Right.
you know and so sometimes you feel a little bit left out or not seen or heard. So if
And
I were to talk about that, that would be the one of the major things.
okay, okay, and I think that's a very valid point that you mentioned, and it's not so much that you're saying, "Hey, I was a goody two shoes" or anything like that, but
Mm-mm.
I totally relate to that, because I mean, while I wasn't a perfect kid, I wasn't a problem kid.
Right.
My mom didn't really have to worry about me getting into anything extreme trouble. But as you
Mhm.
stated, sometimes as a kid growing up, when you're sort of within the lines of the rules, and for the most part, you're respectful, you're not wilding out, you're not getting into a whole bunch of crazy stuff. People kind of assume, even as a child, oh, you're okay,
You're good.
you're fine, you're good. We don't have to worry about you. It's
Right.
the others. And you're saying, well, yeah, I might be quote unquote good. I might not be a problem child, but I still need, your guidance. I still need your direction. I still need people in my life that, to help me build up my, whether it's building up my confidence, building up my
Right.
self esteem, making me understand that I'm more than just a kid who does, follows the rules and does okay in school and all of that. I need a little bit more. So don't just automatically just, dismiss that like as if I got it all figured out. I'm just a
Right.
kid. I don't have it all figured
I
out.
don't. I don't.
And I need just as much guidance as the ones that you've identified as being the quote unquote problem kids.
Hmm.
While you're trying to
Hmm.
reel them in to stay out of trouble, I need you to reel me in to make sure that I don't waste the talents and the gifts that are in me, that I don't underestimate the value that I bring to the table.
That's
So
that's right.
I totally relate to what you just said, and I'm
Mhm.
glad that you brought that up. Because it is an important thing. So anybody that's listening as a parent, yeah, it's great to have that. Even myself, my child is
Mhm.
pretty much, for the most part, straight A student, but she
Mhm.
has other challenges that
Mhm.
if I wasn't an attentive parent, if my wife wasn't an attentive parent, we could easily overlook that and miss out on the opportunity to help her develop and grow in those areas that she really needs that nourishing that nurturing in that confidence in. We know we got the academics down, but what about everything else? The life
Right.
skills, the social skills, the ability to make friends and have fun and not be the loner,
Yeah.
and all of that kind of stuff.
All of
So
that.
all of that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I totally get it.
Mhm.
So thank you for sharing that. So
Sure.
as we move along, of course, in your journey, clearly you, as you stated, came up in a pretty solid home, two parents. Life seems to be going pretty smoothly as you're progressing into adulthood. But as
Mhm.
we know, you live this life long enough, there's going to come a point in time where you begin to face different challenges and obstacles, and some are going to stand out a little bit more than others, to the degree where even if you're normally not running into that type of stuff, or even if you do run into it, you're normally somebody that navigates your way out of it, somehow. Every now and then we get hit with that weight, that burden, that it hits different. This is
Yes.
sometimes there's that something, that someone, that some situation where you're just like, man, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I've never had this before. This is a bit much. You're overwhelmed. You're stressing. You're frustrated. And you just, again, you just don't see a way out. So what I would like to ask you is, tell us about a time when you found yourself in such a situation where you were feeling all of these emotions that I just talked about. Walk us through what that journey was like for you, and what did it ultimately take for you to be able to have that breakthrough moment, if you will, to begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, that I can get through this, even though this is more than what I'm normally accustomed to having to deal with.
So I'm gonna take you back a little bit, and then I'm gonna bring you forward. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So probably when I was, I'm sure it was when I was 19, I got kind of tangled up with a different kind of crowd, right? And I guess it was appealing to me for that reason that I mentioned to you. I was the quiet child. I was the obedient one. I wasn't the problem child. So now I was attracted to the problem people.
Mm-hmm.
And, and so the people that I was hanging out with, they were into drugs and stuff like that. And even though I would hang out with them, I would only go so far. It was almost like there was an invisible barrier. Like, you can do this, but you can't do that. And I would sit there and watch them do what they were doing. And just to be transparent, at the time they were freebasing, and they were, I'm looking at them cook it up and do all the things that they do to it. This was before, of course, the crack epidemic. But I never could wrap my mind around what they were doing and how they were doing it. It just always seemed weird to me that you would go through this whatever. So my pleasure was weed at the time. So I would do the weed, but I couldn't do that. And I would watch them do it, and I would watch them like it be gone like that, and they would be angry. And I'm like, why I want to do something like that? Because
Right.
I'm happy over here. I'm feeling good, and it's a long time before I have to re up anything. Um, well, the folks that I was hanging out with, um, my mother didn't like them, of course, at all. Didn't like them at all. And my mother had invested a lot in me as far as putting me in private schools and um, things like that. And so I had grown up in private schools basically all my life. And so now I get out of private school and this is what I do, right? So I remember one time my mother was experiencing an episode where she could not breathe. And I didn't know what to do. I was freaking out. I didn't know, and I'm like, Mama, let me call the hospital, let me call the paramedics. And she was like, no, no, no. And she brought me to her bedside. My mother was a large woman, so I walked behind her to walk her to the bed and laid her in the bed, hoping that that would help clear her airway a little bit because she was just laboring with breathing. And I said, I'm going to go call my sister or whatever. And she's like, no. She grabbed my hand and she sat me down on the side of the bed. And through her laborious breathing, she's like, um, hmm. She's like, those people that you're running with, they mean you no good. They mean you no good. She's like, they are trying to drag you down. She's like, and I will kill them dead before I watch them drag one of mine. She's like, I've poured so much into you that I don't have a lot left for the two younger ones. She's like, and I am not going to watch everything that I've put into you go down the drain. And very similar to right now, all I could do was sit there and cry. Um, because it was amazing that in that moment of her not being able to breathe for the most part and needing something, what exactly, I don't know. But I didn't know at the time. But she needed to tell me that in that moment. And so it was at that moment that I decided that I didn't need those people. If this was
Mm.
hurting my mother this badly, then I don't need y'all. And so and excuse me, but I walked away from them, as a group, as a friend, as um I want to say that happened probably in August or September, and the following February my mother transitioned and went home to be with the Lord. But um one of the things she told me, Joseph, also before, I don't know if it was after that or it had to have been because I was at home because at that time I was hanging out all the time.
Hmm.
um, and sh- she said, you know what, Sophia? She's like, you can be anything you want to be. You can do anything you want to do. All you got to do is just go after it and you can do it. And I guess it was in that moment that I was open and receptive to hearing that. And up to this point, I've pretty much done whatever it is I wanted to do. I struggle a little bit today. I don't know why, but up until now, I have. So to answer your question, long story short, the most tragic thing for me was when my mother made her transition. I wasn't ready.
Hmm.
I was 20 years old. I didn't know much about life. I had to grasp everything that she had taught me and said to me up to those points. I didn't get the chance to leave home really and come back and lick my wounds and go back out or have that net to to get to catch me. So yeah.
Wow. Well, let me first off start by saying that I do, of course, appreciate your transparency and sharing this story. You know, anytime you have is when you have a parent that you have a close bond with that you respect highly, and that they've made sacrifices and poured their all their energies that they have to make a life great for you, to put you in the best position possible to do well with life. That's something special, and everybody doesn't have the luxury of being able to say that. So it's a blessing in itself that you're even able to speak to that you had that opportunity. And like you said, you're never ready for that transition moment. I mean, you know, having lost my mother myself, and being there when it happened, and
Hmm.
I tell people all the time, it was like it was the most traumatic thing I've ever dealt with. I always knew that day would come,
Hmm.
but you're never really ready for it. And just as you spoke about that conversation, you know, um, your mom trying to, it was almost like she could see, I'm not going to be here much longer, and I need to make sure that whatever it is, the last moment of nuggets that I need to reinforce and drop in you, that you have that, so that I know that when I close my eyes, I can be at peace knowing my child is going to be okay.
Yes.
And my mother was the same way with me. It was like, I just want to know that when I shut my eyes that you good.
Mm-hmm.
So she was at, when that moment starts to approach, and it was something I would refer to, and I even mentioned it in my book. It was what I used to call the death conversations. And I used to hate them because it
Mm.
was like, she always, when this happens, I want you to be ready for this. I want you to know this. And like, I don't want to talk about that, because I don't
Right.
want to think about you
Right.
not being here,
Right.
but fast forwarding, I appreciated it because I understood later why she was trying to prepare me, because she knew it was going to hurt. So she
Mm-hmm.
wanted me to be ready for it, but she also wanted me to be able to, after I got out of my emotional moment in it, to be able to go out here and, as you talked about when your mom's saying to you, you can do anything you want to do. You just need to go out there and get it. Go out and, make that mark. And I got those similar pep talks, if you will. And even to this day, and I'm sure you probably, even though you haven't said it, even to this day, there are moments in time where I'll still hear those conversations,
Oh, absolutely.
in my head. I'll be in a moment where I might be thinking or doing something, and if it's the right thing, I'll hear my mom's voice basically kind of saying, "That's what I'm talking about," if you will. And then if it's something that I'm sidetracking, I'll hear that same voice like, "Now look, what I tell you," almost like, "Don't make me come back."
All right. All right.
You
Or
know,
do
it's
you
some,
find yourself even doing things that like she would have done them?
uh-huh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, you know, um, and also I tell people, when you have that kind of experience, it's like you never get over it.
Mm-mm.
It's not a thing that, oh, it's been this many years or whatever, you should be. No, I'm never going to get over it. You're never going to get over it. That even just you having that conversation, it was striking up emotions. But what you do learn over time is again, you grasp those lessons, you apply it to your day to day, and the tears that used to be tears of sadness are really more tears of joy, as you're just thankful
And
for
gratitude.
what that gratitude. And so sometimes in the gratitude moment, it will make you tear up.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
yeah, that was, you because you talked about that. Like, I didn't really understand what it meant to have a two-parent household. I didn't really get the whole
I
essence
didn't.
of being able to go to private schools pretty much, and being able to navigate through the challenges of the streets, because as we know with Chicago, I mean, and living on the south side, there was gangs, there was drugs, there
Oh
was all
yeah.
that kind of
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Some of
I
our
was. I was
friends didn't make it
definitely.
through, and
A
some of
lot
us
of my
did.
friends did not.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
same here. I've had friends who are in the grave as a result of that, some
Hmm.
who are in prisons because of that, some who didn't
Hmm.
finish school because of that. So why was I different? How did I navigate through? Well, you were blessed to have good parents who saw the big picture,
Hmm.
and and of course, bigger than that, a God who had a special assignment for you. And so
Absolutely.
they utilize our parents to navigate us, to get us to get us to the point where we need to be, and then they bring them home. So now we can go ahead and live that life that they've poured into to set up for us to, again, to experience what that greatness looks like. So I'm always encouraged and inspired to hear stories like what you just shared. And I understand, like I said, that bond with your mom, and
Hmm.
it's a very special thing. But she knew what she was doing. She knew, she wanted to speak. Let me, even in the, like I said, even in that moment of struggling with breathing, let me get this out now while it's on my
Yes.
mind.
Yes.
And
While it's on my mind.
while it's on my
Somebody.
mind.
Somebody posted something the other day, and they said if you had the opportunity to receive a box with everything that you've lost, what would be the first thing that you go looking for? And without question, immediately I type my mom.
Hmm. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, when I think about, and I'm sure again, when you think about the things that you've even accomplished up to this point, and there's still more work that you're trying to do, more things that you're trying to accomplish, but
Mhm.
you know, my mom would be doing flips to just think about me sitting here doing a podcast, to to know that I wrote a book, you know,
Mhm.
to have opportunities to speak. I mean, she would. I mean, she wouldn't be surprised because she would say, "I always knew you could do that," but it would just be the joy that would be
But
just
see,
overwhelming
that's something I
aside.
always question. I just wish I could hear her audibly tell me that she's proud of me, or
Uh huh.
proud of the person that I've become. Because, like I told you back then, I was kind of ape doodoo. So I just like to know, that she would. I believe she would be, and everybody has said that. But of course,
Hmm.
it's not anything like what she would say.
Yeah, I think the way you may not get the chance to per se hear the words because they're
Hmm.
not here anymore, but I think the way I know is that when I am in those moments where I know I'm doing the right thing and it's coming out the right way, it's kind of indescribable to speak to it, but it's just a feeling. It's just an energy that just kind of overcomes you, and it's part of it. Of course, is the I acknowledge as being the godly presence, just saying
Hmm.
job well done. But it's also another presence that just makes me feel like she's here, and it could sometimes it could just be something um, you know, unexpectedly random, if you will. It could be, I could be outside and maybe there's a bird in a tree or a song that plays or something
Hmm.
that a smell that's familiar to me that immediately makes me think about my mom.
Yes.
And I'll automatically, it'll just, without me even trying to make the connection, I'll make the connection like, I know you're here. You're
Yeah.
sending some kind of vibe to me to let me know I see you, I feel you, I'm excited for you, all of those kind of things. And I
Hmm.
think, and I'm sure pretty sure you probably have had some type of moments like that where you that felt
Oh
like
yes.
mom. That smelled like mom. That
Hmm.
sounded like something. Or even sometimes you do it. You're like,
Hmm.
I just said something, but that's what my mom used to say. And I never
Yes.
thought that I would be saying that same thing that she used to say, or the mannerism, or something that you do, and it instantly that's me
Oh
mimicking my
yeah.
mom without mimicking my mom. It's just like it just naturally just happens.
Just
So
naturally happens. You're right.
yeah, so I think that's their way of still staying connected with us and letting us know that they're still here in their
Hmm.
own, spiritual realm way
Hmm.
to be present, to let us know that, I got you and that every bit of what they poured into us is still resonating in our minds and in our hearts and even the hard lessons, they're still there,
Yes.
I can even hear those moments. I can know when I've done something or thought something or said something that I had no business doing, saying, or thinking. I could hear my mom's voice,
Right.
in her own way. I already know how she would react, the look, the everything. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. That's awesome. Again, I thank you for your transparency and sharing that.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about dealing with adversity, whether it's something as major as the loss of a parent, or even if it's just something, just that minor annoyance, that can happen on any given day where a problem is before us that we got to deal with. I can't just ignore it or blow it off. I'm curious to know, what process do you like to go through, if you will, that kind of helps you to deal with such moments? Again, that doesn't mean whether it's big or small. If it's an annoyance, if it's a challenge, if it's a disturbance, an inconvenience, what do you like to do that just sort of helps you stay, kind of keeping your head in perspective, keeping a clear process and thinking of it all? How do you like to go through working through those challenging moments? What works for you?
Well, if we go back to when my mother made her transition, I guess you wouldn't think that I had a process because I just kind of stepped out for a moment and did pretty much whatever I was big enough and bad enough to do. I
Mm-hmm.
was just on the path of destruction in my mind as I look back. Um, but even then, I know that God was with me because this was an era where all kinds of Um, drugs were starting to run rampant. All kinds of, diseases were heightened and all of that. So I, um, I, I didn't do anything at that point. But then it lasted for like 7 years, and I thought
Mm-hmm.
that that was kind of an interesting number, 7, because at the end of 7 years, everything stopped. It just ceased, and I began to have a mind to, well, as a kid, even when nobody else did, I went to church. I would go to church all the time. I loved to go to the weekday services and all of that. So I'd always been drawn to the church, right? And so I think that it was those moments that I had gone to church, not even really knowing what I was doing, to be honest. I was going for the candy in my mind. But I think it was those moments that actually covered me in that time of just loss, being lost. And when I came to myself, like the prodigal son, and I realized that this is not the way that I need to live, and this is not who I was raised to be, and this is not what I was raised to be. And although my mother is gone, I have a father who has cattle on 1,000 hills. And then I remembered too that my mother told me I can do whatever you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever it is you want. And so I started drawing on the strength of God, my Father. That's what my process has been. And I started having a conversation, you know, um, and just really, seeking Him out and asking Him what is it that I needed to do and how should I do whatever. And I'm not going to say that I was perfect even then, but this was when He began to enter into my world more so as an adult. And this is when I began to know about Him.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Love that. And I think that, again, as in that Christian walk, in that faith walk, it is a journey with that.
Hmm.
And I hint a little bit about that. I won't even say hint. I talk about that, sort of indirectly in the book. Speaking about, it's a step by step process. There's stages to it. And I think along those stages, there are also those valley experience moments that we
Hmm.
have. Those, whether it's, again, like for me, it was, my mom's passing was a big valley experience moment, but there were
Hmm.
others that weren't as major as that, but they were nevertheless defining events that took place that at the time, like I said, they didn't feel good. They wasn't what I wanted. But when you fast forward and you kind of make the connections, you see, okay, this is why this has happened. This is why this had to happen. Just even going back to my mom's passing, I tell people now that while it was the most traumatic thing that has ever happened to me, it was also one of the greatest blessings that I could have ever had.
Mm.
And and what I mean by that is I used to use my mother as a crutch to move forward in what God was trying to show me as my calling.
Hmm.
I couldn't relocate. I thought about at one point, relocating to Atlanta and places like that because, with my job, there were going to be more opportunities in those places. And back in the day, especially earlier in my career, those were hot spots. I mean, I could have literally not only relocated, I could have made more money. I could have moved up much faster had I done that. But it was always, I don't want to leave my mom by herself. I don't, and my mom this and my mom that, and you know, and I would say things, what happens if she gets sick? What happens if she needs money? What happens if she needs this and needs that? And in the meantime, God is being patient.
Hmm.
He's he's still putting it on my heart to say, look, I see what you're saying, but I have an assignment for you. There's more to you that you need to do, that places that you need to go that your moms can't go with you, you
Right.
know. And I kept on, I kept on, I kept on, and then finally, what does God do? He answered my prayer. Now I didn't realize that I was praying for this, but he answered the prayer, and the prayer was I wanted to make sure that my mom was going to be okay. So what does God do? He says, well, what better way for me to make sure that she's okay than to just go ahead and bring her home with me?
Mm.
When my mom passed, she was at the hospital, but we were at the hospital for something that was not life threatening.
Mm,
It wasn't. I knew she was going when I was at the hospital with her. I knew she was going to be there for a few days, but there was no conversation about. We hope she makes it through the night. We weren't talking about that. And then
right.
all of a sudden, while we're there, you flatline.
Mm,
And I'm like, well, wait a minute. But then after we go through that, and you reflect back later, and I'm, again, the tears have gone away, and I've kept my breath, and I'm sitting still, and God is talking to me, and He's like, well, weren't you concerned about mom being all right? Well, don't you think she's all right with me? She's not going to be sick anymore. No money problems. No, you don't have to worry about if she's going to be all right. She's with me. Isn't that what you wanted? I know that's not how you wanted it to go,
right.
but I
Come on now.
answered what you wanted.
Yeah. No,
Now,
I totally. I mean, you see, I didn't even flinch when you said that it was one of the biggest blessings because I too would have never left Chicago. I have four other siblings, but that was my mom.
mm-hmm,
Okay. So I understand that those are my siblings and all of them came from her too, but that was my mama.
mm-hmm,
And so, even for Christmas or anytime birthdays and stuff like that, I always gave her a special gift specifically from me. So it wasn't anything that, you know, I know I had to share her title, but I didn't share her, if that makes
mm-hmm.
sense.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, she suddenly passed, not at a hospital, but at home, and just got up to go to school one morning and fell out on the floor. The end.
Mm. But like you said, it was like you said just a moment ago, I would have never left.
I would have never left. I never would have experienced probably the things that I've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
I probably never would have met a lot of the people that I've had the opportunity to meet or engage with. No, I wouldn't have left her. I know that for a fact.
Right. And so, that transition, God wasn't trying to hurt you or me when that
Mm-hmm.
happened. He knew it would hurt,
Mm-hmm.
but He was like, but I'm here for you. So I'm going to help comfort you and get you through this. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to, because it's going to take a little bit to ease that sting that you're feeling right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also an opportunity for you and I to get closer together so you can clearly see what I've been trying to show you for some time now,
Yes.
as to this is for you.
Yeah.
Your mother did her part. Your
Mm-hmm.
father did his part. Joe, your mom did her part. She
Mm-hmm.
she completed the assignment. Her work is
Mm-hmm.
done.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's time for you to venture off and do all this whole preparation thing was for. It's now time for you to experience it and go through it so that we can get you to where you get to, and that cycle will continue its process along life. I mean, I hope that there will come a day where I pour into what I need to pour into my own child,
Mm-hmm.
and then when it's time for me to close my eyes, that I can close them knowing that she's okay,
Yeah.
that she'll
Yeah.
know how to make it, that she'll be good to go, and that she'll live her best life. I
Mm-hmm.
can go. I know I'm gonna go, but I'd rather go knowing that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
your mom wanted to make. I want to make sure the surf is good.
Mm-hmm.
I know what she's capable of, but I need to know that she's in the right headspace so she can go out here and make it. And will she fall? Will she stumble sometime? Yep. But at least I know
Absolutely.
she won't stay down. She'll
Right.
get back up. She'll be fine. I just need to know that she can make it. And so I think that's what our parents, the ones who are truly committed to what's best for their children, and of course have a relationship with God. I think that's what happens to us. It's
Yes.
the byproduct of all of that. So again, I thank you for sharing that. So
True.
if you had an opportunity, again, just reflecting back on this journey and everything, if you had
Mm-hmm.
a chance to talk to the younger Surf, the Surf who, I played by the rules for the most part, but I was struggling early on to kind of find my way, to find my identity, to move on from, losing my mom and just trying to figure out life and what it all is caked up, caked up to be. I mean, if you had a chance to talk to her, or perhaps somebody that's like what you used to be back then, trying to figure it all out, trying to, how do I handle the difficult and challenging times? what would be the words of wisdom that you would have to offer to the younger you, or somebody that is like you right, back then, that is like you right now? What would you say to that individual?
I'd say, Surphia, it's going to be, there's going to be some challenges, but you can make it and you will make it. And all you have to do is anchor in, know that you're doing the right thing. Try to do the right thing all the time, even when the wrong thing seems appealing. Try to do the right thing, regardless, because a lot of times the wrong thing will look nice, but it'll turn out way worse than if you had done the right thing. Um, discover you. Find out who you are. Find out who you are in God. Study your Bible a little bit more, and you can bypass all that stuff that's flashing, the shiny objects. I know it might be a little difficult because we all like shiny objects. We like sparkly things, but you don't have to partake in all of it. Some of it you can learn about just by sitting and observing. And when you sit and observe, you'll see exactly what becomes of that shiny object. And the final thing I would tell my um, self is, don't be scared. If God be for you, who can be against you? Don't be scared. Walk with a boldness. Speak with a boldness. Don't allow your voice to be silenced. Don't allow um, the opinion of others to shut you down.
Mhm.
Do exactly what Mama said. Go after whatever it is you want.
Love that. Love that. I think that was about as nice of a package as you could have put it, to your younger self, to someone who has the opportunity to listen to this podcast, and just to hear your message, because there's a lot of young ladies out here that are in that very same spot. And you've given them some powerful nuggets to grasp hold to that they can apply right now.
Mhm.
To be fearless, to go for, to go for it all. What that vision is, what that purpose is, to know their worth, to know their value, and own that. You are the diamond. Instead of
Mhm.
looking for, affirmation and approval of what everybody else thinks you should be, what do you think you should be?
Mhm.
And are you living in that space? Are you acting like as if you were the diamond, that you're the special one that God created you to be, or are you taking low to fit in? Are you are you dismissing the greatness that's within you? Because you don't want to come off like as if you're bragging or anything. If you got it going on, you got it going on. There's nothing wrong with that.
And there's
you
nothing
know,
wrong with it.
you know.
But
Um,
can I interject? A
yes,
lot
go
of
ahead.
times when we go into the corporate America arena, and that's something else I would tell her. Don't let them make you feel small, because a lot of times the dynamism of corporate America is absolutely designed to keep you in a box,
Mm-hmm.
or keep you in a specific place that they feel that you're most valued in, without you even having the opportunity of seeing your other talents, or even inquiring about your aspirations or your goals. So that's why you have to go after it. But if you allow them to define you and who you are and what you are, and you accept that definition onto yourself, then you've just lost 80% of the battle,
Mm-hmm.
because now you're no longer pursuing your dreams, you're pursuing someone else's.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because so often, what tends to happen, in whether you're talking about corporate spaces or otherwise, and I've told this to people before, how you can actually, we think about people who get penalized in the workspace, because they're underperformers.
Hmm.
They're not doing what they need to do. But a lot of times people miss the fact that you can get penalized for actually being good at what you do.
Oh, absolutely.
And as you stated, if you're not careful, if you don't know your worth, if you don't, insist on being given the recognition and the value that you deserve, whether we're talking about the finances, whether we're talking about the opportunities or what have you, there will be people who will try to, like you said, keep you in that box, to keep you to thinking that you're not as great as you are or not as special as you are. Because as long as I can keep you here, you benefit me. You keep my stats up, you keep my reports looking nice, you get me bonuses and acknowledgments and promotions and things like that. I keep you here because I know if I lose you, then I lose that excellence. And
Yes,
if you buy into that this is all I am, you'll fall for it and think, okay, this is a great place to be. I
absolutely.
should be thankful to be here. I'm like, no,
No.
you shouldn't be. And then to go back to your fearless argument is, when you do find yourself realizing that you're more than what you're being acknowledged as, then you have to have the boldness to say, you know what? Perhaps my season here has come to an end. Perhaps we no longer are a good fit. And that's okay.
And that's okay.
You see me here. My ceiling is much higher. You're not willing to raise that. No hard feelings. We just need to part ways.
Yep.
I need to go my way to find that better space
Yep.
to show my worth, to display my greatness. A space that will not cap me, that
Hmm.
will not block me, put me in this box, but a space where I can just, where there is no boundaries anymore in terms of the things that I can accomplish and the lives that I can change. And that's where we have that transition that I spoke about earlier, about from the career to the calling,
Hmm.
where I'm actually fulfilled in what I do. I still
Hmm.
work hard, but at the end of the day, I feel like it was for the right purpose,
Right.
not just for the benefit of somebody who doesn't appreciate me, or who
Correct.
takes me for granted, or who thinks little of me, who wouldn't have a problem replacing me in an instant the minute I don't agree with them, or or I challenge something that they feel about a particular way or a thing. So, so I'm glad you interjected in bringing that up, because it's so important for people to understand, and I hope our listeners do take heed to that, and the value that they need to, again, recognize themselves as, what is my worth, and truly knowing it and believing it and owning it. And
Hmm.
again, don't be ashamed about it. Don't hide it. Don't downplay it because you think it's going to offend somebody or make somebody uncomfortable because you're great. you know,
Right.
no, we're not doing that. So
No.
don't take small, don't take less, don't take little. It's not worth it. So awesome, awesome. So before I let you go, I do of
Hmm.
course want to take an opportunity to celebrate you, to love on you, to affirm you. If you would tell us what, if you got any projects going on, anything that you're in the mix of doing, any upcoming events, anything that you can share with us or you'd like to share with us that we can, again, just acknowledge and celebrate you on, and maybe even connect with you on that opportunity is available.
Absolutely. Well, I'm in the process of finishing up my first book, which is going to be Surface. It's going to be a 60-day journey to your next.
Mm,
It's centered around helping mainly women who have hit midlife, and maybe they are changing careers and there's a pivot in their life. Maybe they are a new empty nester or something like that, and they're trying to figure out, what do I do next? How do I get there? What do I do? So it's going to be a daily journal with a workbook that will be incorporated in the same book. So I don't want you to have to go to another book to write your thoughts. I want you to be able to continue your journey right there. And so it won't be a book that you can pass to someone else unless you want them to know your thoughts. But yes, I'm looking for that to come out in the next month or so. Um, as far as events, I don't have any that are open to the public at this moment, but I do have a couple of events coming up in October where I'm speaking. Have the opportunity to speak, and basically, my mission, Joseph, is to help women understand that you can win with what you already have. So um, you can check me out. I do a Tuesday morning harvest prayer talk on Instagram and Facebook, both of which are at Surph Speaks. And I also have a website, which is www.surfspeaks.com. And probably I should spell that. So it's S as in Sam, U R, P as in Peter, H, and then the word speaks, SPEAKS.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I'm excited for your upcoming book. I think that's going to be a phenomenal thing to for the ladies to grasp hold to, and as you said, just tap into what they already have. I mean, because when you think about it, that's how God works.
Yes,
When he presents a vision to us, when he's trying to show us what is before us, he always begins with what we already have. So when we get kind of find ourselves in that mode where we're talking ourselves out of taking that next step because, well, I don't have this and I just need this. No, what you need to do is start with what you have, and then
hmm,
just taking, and just trusting that anything that you need as you move along, God will fill those gaps, or connect you with the people that you need to be connected, or the resources that you need to be connected. But what you don't want to do is procrastinate and come up with all the reasons to not get going
right.
versus just jumping right in and making it happen. Just like we talked about earlier with the podcast thing. If if
Yeah,
I if I allowed myself to talk negative about it, oh, I need a studio and I need props and I need all of this and I need to invest in $10,000 worth of equipment to have these conversations. I didn't need all of that to get going. Now,
no,
in a perfect scenario down the road, who knows? Maybe I'll have the fancy set and the fancy equipment and all that, but I didn't need all of that for to have a moment like we're having today, where two people get online and we talk about some much needed conversations that need to be had, and we're doing just fine with that. So
well, Joseph, I'm going to say this to you that, I think people appreciate the authenticity more so today than the actual setup.
I agree. I agree.
We might be attracted to the background and all that good stuff, but we got virtual backgrounds. We can make it look like we're in a studio and all of
Right.
that. But I think that the authenticity of your show and your podcast is what's the draw.
I appreciate that. And that's exactly the way that I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be relatable. I didn't want it to be superficial. I didn't, as we talked about, while we do speak of God and the relationship with God, I didn't want to be, Mr. Churchy
Hmm.
and holier than thou. And,
You want to
and every other word out of my mouth is dropping the scripture. And, all of those things are valuable. I'll tell anybody, pray. I'll tell anybody, get in your word. I'll speak to all of that. But, again, at the end of the day, it's about, you know, telling our stories, making the connection, and just really just trying to help people to process life and knowing that even when you're dealing with difficult times, it doesn't mean that it has to be your end.
no.
It's again, it's just a part of the journey. And again, even the rethinking and rewording what we would call bad or difficult or whatever. We should instead be saying these are opportunities for us to
Yes,
grow.
yes.
These are opportunities for us to develop. Get away from the negative talk of it, because it's all a necessary part of us getting to where we need to get to realizing that vision and actually living in it, actually seeing it come to fruition. Without the journey, it's never going to happen. And the
Right.
road is not going to always be this nice, smooth, no bumps, no hiccups, no, it's not going to roll. That's not life. That's not real. So
I like to say either you win or you learn.
hmm there you go.
You never lose.
There you go.
You
You
win
win
or
or
you
learn. I love that. And that's
And
really what
even
it
when you
is.
learn, you win because now you might be doing that same thing, but this time you're doing it from experience.
hmm Exactly. I love that. I mean, that's true. And we can't get caught up in all of the, I need, 50,000 followers and, 75,000 likes and all. I mean, yeah, that's cool, if you get it, but at the end of the day, when you're doing the right thing in the right way,
Mhm.
authentically and genuinely, even if it just touches one person,
That's all
that's a
that matters.
victory. That's a
Surf
victory.
Speaks was born out of a hospital bed.
Hmm.
So you see, all I had was an iPad and my hospital bed.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, that's awesome. And again, it's moments like that, whether it's a hospital bed or some other, challenging event in life, that God oftentimes will use as the moments to speak to us, to pour
Mm-hmm.
into us, because he has our attention, because we're sort of in an isolated moment. We're not all
Mm.
distracted and all over the place moving. Sit still. I got
Uh-huh.
something to talk to you about.
Right.
So
That
what
part.
better way for you to be up in that hospital bed, can't go nowhere. Now I got your
Nowhere.
attention.
Right. Full
Now I can
attention.
talk to you. You're not
Uh-huh.
distracted by the other stuff of the world. I can you and I can have a conversation, a
Right.
much needed conversation. And like you said, what is birthed out of that? Surf Speaks. And so for
Mm-hmm.
people who haven't had a chance to hear uh, your weekly session, where you're basically putting out an encouraging word, and of course concluding that with prayer, I would definitely encourage anybody, check her out. Check her out on Facebook, Instagram. It's not a long, drawn out thing. I mean, I've literally listened to it on the train going to work, or if it's been, if I happen to be a situation where I'm at home that day, I can catch it. It's early enough in the morning that it's a good kickstart to your day, to get your head clear, to get your heart right. So it's a wonderful thing. So Surf is she's trying to make a mark. She's trying to make a difference, one person at a time, one day at a time, but doing it the right way and just allowing God to use her gifts accordingly. And you can't do anything but celebrate that and love on that. And that's exactly what we're doing right now, is loving on it. And much blessings to you, and prayers to you that God's anointing will continue to just shower all over you. And I'm just excited to see what he's gonna, the great works that he's gonna continue to birth out of you, and again, the impact that it's going to have in our world, because we need more people like yourself. Even though there's nobody that's going to be like you, we need people that are like-minded like you, wanting to do the right thing, and encouraging people to, of course, do life in a godly way, leaning into God, building that relationship with God, and doing it in a way that is pleasing, in His sight, and
Yeah.
he's going to be proud of something. We can go to Him and say, "Was that what you wanted?" And he gives you that nod of approval. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I wanted. You did it just the way I needed you to do it. You're on the right path. So excellent, excellent. So for my listeners, if you've enjoyed our content today, I truly do appreciate if you would subscribe, share, like, comment. Because again, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is what it's all about. We're trying to encourage, we're trying to uplift, we're trying to inspire and empower. We're using our personal stories, our testimonies, letting you know that, again, no matter what it is that you're going through, you're not alone. You don't have to do it by yourself. We all go through challenging times. Mine may not be yours may not be mine, but it doesn't define the end of your story. Use it as an opportunity to learn. Use it as an opportunity to grow. Use it as an opportunity to develop. You combine that with a relationship with God, trusting in Him, believing in Him, letting Him be your eyes and ears to navigate that path for you. And I promise you, I'm not telling you something that I heard. I'm telling you something that I know. I'm telling you something that Surf knows.
Yes.
We're not just making this up because it sounds good. It sounds politically correct. This is coming from heartfelt, real life experiences. And so we want you, as well as others, to get a piece of that. It's enough to go around for everybody. So
More
with
than
that,
enough.
absolutely, absolutely. So with that said, remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and where your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. And until next time, please, God bless. Take care of yourselves. Keep fighting that good fight. Persevere. Don't give up. Believe in yourself. Love on yourself. Acknowledge what your worth is. And don't let anybody define that for you. And most importantly, have that relationship with God, because I promise you it'll be the best decision that you'll ever make. Talk to you next time. Take care.